yourself DCA your way into cryptocurrency. Now, personally, I like the fact they have a alert system so you can get information about different cryptocurrencies and when they're up, when they're down, things like that. And that's the best point of their product. But then again, there's so much there for you to go and check out. Again, roundlyx.com. Check them out. They're our sponsor, and let's get it going. Oh my gosh, that intro gets me every time. Absolutely love it. Thank you, roundlyx.com, for sponsoring us and helping us make this happen. So today, we're going to be talking about diving deep into some cryptocurrencies. I did say last that we would start doing this and get more hands-on experience with how hashes work differently from different types of coins, but also how different types of currencies actually work in the cryptocurrency space. Everybody thinks they all work exactly the same just because they're cryptocurrency, but that's not actually true. So, basically, in this, we're going to go, what exactly is DigiByte cryptocurrency? And, well, it's an elder cryptocurrency with a lack of real knowledge with people that's not involved with it, or so it seems. And so, we're going to dive in deeply into what it has, what it offers. We're going to see what it's up to, how it works, does it solve any problems? And, of course, we're going to look at its hashing because that's my favorite part. All right. So, before we get started, just like last time, I do own some DigiByte in some form. It's kind of hard to play with these things if you don't own it and play with it. I'm going to be bringing up a QR on screen every time we look at something so you can follow along with us. But there should also, if you're on YouTube or anything like that, there should be a series of links in the description coming up, probably right after the live stream. So, if you're watching the replay, just look in the description for more information if you want to follow along. So let's get going. Jumping into DigiByte. Whom is DigiByte? So DigiByte is a cryptocurrency founded by Jared Tate, but the core dev is Alexei, I know I'm saying it wrong, Alexei Gurevich. And they call him SIT for short, SIT. So, DigiByte is also a registered company for the cryptocurrency. Now, this actually was kind of alarming to me. I didn't think they had a company at all. And then their company security rating is actually a D. That's a bit weird, but it is a true statement. Even down to where the HQ is set up, it's set into a specific states of USA, California, but it has no actual location, as in like a direct address to where it could be at. They do have a little bit of information about it, and we do see it really does say DigiByte. It does have the DigiByte original logo. It does have branding, has all the right stuff. When we go down to key people, we can really see um, who they consider the company to really be. Now, they do say they have uh, employees and other things that would imply that this is probably for the foundation, the DigiByte Foundation, which we'll get into here soon, especially with the total funding to get it going. It makes me think this is probably for the foundation, but there is no way to prove which one this is actually for. Foundation, the currency itself, one of the other entities involved with DigiByte. And I think this is kind of important. Is like last time we looked at the people, we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna actually look at these two key people here involved. So we're gonna go over both Mr. Jared and Mr. Sid. So if we, oh, I forgot to push this button. Hold on, I totally forgot. My bad. Get you this link. There you go. Scan the QR to go ahead and follow along. Right there. Here we go. So if we go over to Twitter, we can find Mr. Jared Tate. Pretty easily actually. He's pretty much well known. He had been kicked off, and not too long ago, got right back in. And you see the first thing pinned is actually what we're going to look at next, and it is a series of tweets he did, and I think what he's talking about is kind of important here. So you can see he is talking about starting in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, blockchain technology in general, Just keep in mind, at one point in time, it wasn't called. We didn't have Bitcoin for blockchain. So then he's talking about like DigiByte. He's basically talking about why he left DigiByte, and we will get into that more. I just think that it's kind of important if you really want to come see what his reasoning for leaving is. Jump on over and find out because uh, and we're gonna talk more about it later. It's it's definitely strange and a something to wonder about. So now we're gonna go over to coin ounce, and basically we're just gonna look at really who is Mr. Jared Tate. What we see here, we actually get a picture of the guy. We see that in this sort of I chose this. It kind of describes a few different things here very blunt. So it tells us exactly who the founder really is. It is Jared Tate. Cool. We can tell that we find out he actually is stepping down. It says it right there. Cool. And he says the reason is greed. Cool. Those are the three main factors that we need to know because trying to figure out who he is before DigiByte is not as easy as I would like it to be. There's LinkedIn, but I'm not allowed to view LinkedIn, so I can't use it. And that's actually the reason why it's difficult. So we're seeing a lot of the same things we saw with um, XRP when it comes to the actual company or with creating, starting, and running the project. There's a hard time finding information. Everything links back to DigiByte information, information coming from DigiByte, rather the foundation or one of its other entities. Um, and it's kind of hard to find out some of these people about before them. Now, the dev, finding out information about the dev before DigiByte, easy. This guy and some of the runners, not so easy. Um, so I found this. I found a bunch of these. This one was on the nose. It was on the nose. I'm on literally the DigiByte Reddit, and we can see. I don't remember when this was originally posted, um, but it was edited 8 months ago. So that tells you that it's still relevant. That's really what it's saying. And basically, someone's saying it is obvious that this guy is a diverse figure in the community, which Jared Tate apparently was. To be honest, before I didn't know the guy. You see, I am curious what he actually controls. Everyone acts like he is holding back. Uh, how is he able to do that? Issue with the iOS wallet recently. How's that resolved? Thanks. So this person says, my personal take is at least a few years Digi-Byte has progressed in spite of Jared, of Jared, and not really because of him. So this is a bit strange. So normally when you're doing something to spite, you're doing something to make a mad or sort of stuff like that, so to speak. But this whole thing basically comes down to uh, Jared might have been actually a problem with progress. He talks about like he gets credit for making Digibyte. They talk about how there was more qualified people to handle stuff that they're trying to handle that is Digibyte, and that's when he would get in the way. And basically, he's saying that it's like one of the main features problems with Jared is that he doesn't always acknowledge bugs or problems in the code with Digibyte, and that's kind of important because it shows that either he thinks that he knows better or he may know something that other people are not thinking of that's not being said, or there's some form of manipulation. That's the only other way to look at it. And to be honest, I think it's a combination of things. I do think it's a bit of manipulation as to keep some kind of control, but there's also something we're not knowing about that he knows that he's not saying that could be a reasoning for things. Um, so here we go. There has not produced any concrete version for Digibyte version 8, as far as I'm aware. Then they talk about this guy Joshua, um, and he says he's worked several years to try to clearly communicate a bit for what it should be. Jared was nowhere to be seen during this time, And with Barry's help, one of the main they made solid progress on delivering these, this vision. So only for Jared to reappear eventually and throw it out. So I'm pretty sure this is the main thing they're talking about right here. I know I've heard this many times that there are times where it is just MIA, missing in action, um, and that does make things difficult to get done if you're in control of the GitHub or you have the ability to um, reverse merges or anything like that. Like obviously that's some power to have, and it's some form of centralization. Um, and now this guy is talking about how Jared very much doesn't blah 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 for DigiByte. You're basically saying that Jared's not really involved in the community. Now, something I do find strange. Go through Jared's Twitter. We'll actually see that he's still actually like actively is taking part. Still building it. He talks about things that they're doing, and he has various different like things you would expect from someone still working to make the code. But he actually has statements on here about stepping down. Maybe he just hasn't done it yet. I'm not entirely too sure, but I do see him still to this day active in DigiByte. So there's that Reddit page post again. In case I missed this one. All right. So yeah, we are still looking at Jared Tate because he's the main guy. And every time I looked into something or issues or problems, he is still the main guy. So there's a lot to do with this guy, even though he's not like, I don't know if he's even the main coder or anything like that. That's kind of difficult to find information on. Um, but we do see that, like, when you go in through here, it's like they're extra things, digital assets, the digital ID. I think it was like Digi Trust and Digi Password and some other Digi things that were going on around the time frame that the other claiming that he was just gone. So there is a chance that he could have actually been developing privately, um, and that's why he was gone. Still developing. If he is a developer, if he does do some form coding, then that would explain why he disappears from the time. But if he's not, then it doesn't. Now, in here, that's really what it's describing. It's around the same time frame of uh, the other one. Um, when I think the other one was posted, that's what I should be saying. So they seem to be somewhat correlated, as in, um, well, there is this nice big hit piece about, in a positive manner, about Jared. During the same time frame, people are talking negatively about him in the community, who are also working actively in the community, and that's normally a bad sign. That normally means there's some form of poisoning going on. Doesn't mean that there is, just normally means that there's some form of poisoning going on, and that can be a pretty scary situation there. Oh, hey, Paul McNeil. Nice to see you come in again. You're always dropping by, saying hi. I appreciate it, Rosa. Okay, so next guy is Mr. Sit. And we can see, just like the last time with the dev does what the dev does, and had been doing before, the cryptocurrency that he's currently involved in. Um, so I think that's kind of a good point. That's kind of what I was trying to get at the last time, that the dev that they got to do a lot of work was a dev for that type of work. Dev, they got to do a lot of this work. Well, he is a paid dev. Not only that, but he tends to do a lot of like charitable things, good things, things that help. He seems to want to push some kind of positivity amongst the world. And that's a good, I think that's a good thing, because when you have people wanting to do things for good reasons, you get good results. Right, they work on. And all the stuff that we can see that he has worked on in his GitHub, um, and everything else, we do see that a large portion of it is like framework, bug fixing, uh, all sorts of different types of communications. I don't remember if there's anything really. Yeah, you go back in the back, it's just mostly back end stuff. Like, so we can see that the work that he does is similar, which is a good thing. We can see that he's active on core, which when you see like a regular person active on core who's a big entity, you always go, what kind of questions are they answering? What kind of questions? I mean, what kind of answers are they giving? And the reason why you want to see those is you can do like botted questions, things like that. But if they're getting questions more involved into what they're known for or famous for or absolutely anything like that, then you go, okay, then maybe they really know this stuff. Because there are people on core who answer questions that have nothing to do with their field, what they're known for, what they're famous for, or anything like that. But this guy actually does answer questions in a similar style of field where it has something to do with a platform, a major thing, framework, or some form of code. And for example, here they talk about a lot of stuff with Android. I'm also a big Android user, and I know a lot of people in the crypto space. They're some, normally electronics geek, um, and this kind of shows it. So when we go through like his answers for questions, we can see they're very specific sometimes, and he obviously does know what he's talking about. Like when you're able to actually give real information, real answers for questions like what are the factors need to be considered before starting development of the app or product? And he's even like, quite frankly, I won't say anything about the market here since I am no marketing expert. I'm I'm just a programmer, and that shows that not only does he know what he knows, he has extreme knowledge in it. He's able to pinpoint real solutions. So he's a problem solver, which is what a programmer normally is. But it does show he knows his lane. So that's actually everything with Sid super positive. Like, guy's actually a really cool guy. When you go through his Twitter and stuff, it's really neat, really awesome. I think I forgot to give you this one. QR code and his GitHub. There we go. So we're gonna kind of move on to another entity. Just like last time, we looked at the entities involved, not just simply the people entities, but the corporation entities, anything like that. So basically, when we go through the DigiByte Foundation, um, we can kind of see that they seem to represent the cryptocurrency as a whole. They have all the same talking points. More of it, though, is about outreach, getting people to get involved, and okay, but they do something really nice. See here, we can see the team, we can see the sponsors, we can see articles about it, and we can find their financial statement up front. What is up, Kitson? Chill with cat, it seems to be. Um, and so that right there, that kind of shows us that they are more transparent about what's going on. Whether it's true or not, don't know. But it's nice to see that a company's willing to give that type of information. Like usual, we're going to find out information about who these people are. Now, I didn't go into each one of these individually, just because these people are actually easier to find than the last people. Um, so they'd be quite easy to actually find. And but this guy right here is a big one because you see he didn't just do this; he also did the awareness team. So he's a person building multiple entities for DigiByte. And then we go through here, we can see um, some of these people are been into cryptocurrency long periods of time. They tend to be coders. Um, you see, this guy's mostly a volunteer community person, and everybody in here is going to be in that similar setup. Just like last time, They got people who know what they're doing, good in that field, into that socket for that entity. So they're set up to survive. We can see Jared again is involved here. So it's another factor where he has some kind of control involved. Um, Jaeger was really cool person to see that's here. He's really good at what he does and is involved in a lot of different projects and stuff that really makes a difference in the world. Um, a lot of reasons to look into them. And we can see they have like ambassador programs. We can see that they are trying to get more people. So we do see they are actively funding, raising funds and stuff to stay foundation, which normally something you want to see. You want to see people trying to do something to ensure they stay alive. Um, so basically, if we keep going to the foundation, we can find about their sponsors. We can find out all these different things. But I really wanted to check out their financial statement because we're going to find out if it's real financial statement. We're going to find out information about it. Information we're probably going to really easily find out otherwise. How much money and stuff like that isn't nearly as important to me as what and when. We can see here, if we go down to the bottom, um, this is the more newer transactions, it seems like, while these are the older transactions. Wanted to point that out immediately because that's where we're starting at is the old stuff. We can see here they started building up the websites, the foundation, um, everything. And if you say how much is being paid to actually build it, it does look like they're building more than one. Um, but the things that are really like, huh, type stuff is as you keep going down, you can see here contribution to Random X updates. They actually assisted in Random X. Um, and that's going to be more important here in a few minutes. We can see they're doing a lot with like different companies. DigitalOcean being a major access point for servers for them, which all the way back as like 2015, I think DigitalOcean was the cryptocurrency server solution. So that was common. But then we see chains hosting on chains. That's a bit different. We can see one-time cost, new address, and office space. PR, PRI services. Now, it's PRI is short for something. It's private services. So they basically were private using some form of privatable service to create business. And this is why I think this is actually what we were looking at for this. So I think this is actually for the foundation. Um, here we go. Because of the date, everything like that, and the fact that we don't get date codes and stamps of like when was the company started and things like that from the other uh, source, makes me think okay, it's probably correlated together somehow. And then we can see here new address, new address, new address, new address, new address, new address, same services. So new address, new address. So I don't know if that's a regular cost. If the address in this craft page keeps changing, then yeah, that's going to be a regular expense, which then shows that this is directly for them. If it doesn't change, but we keep seeing new expenses for it on their expense report, then they're not correlated. So that's how we can figure out if they are actually involved later on. So for right now, we can only assume that they may be, and we don't actually know, as sad as that is. But we can see this is what that chain's cryptoid is. So they actually pay for their blockchain explorer. A lot of people don't realize that blockchain explorers traditionally are ran and operated by individuals in the community, um, and they actually manage their own. Now there are other DigiByte blockchain explorers. This one technically is the official, just like with Wax, Blockchain, EOS, and some other ones that are proof of stake. We see them having dedicated um, blockchain explorers, and normally you get more features here. And I think that the best point of this is the fact that um, the exchange rates are from various parties. When you go into the actual background of how this is running, they're actually pulling in multiple APIs from multiple different sources for the same exchange to try to get a good number. And like I think like extracted from like this that whole one is set up like you would expect it to be, but they have rich list, top wall, they have extra things in here you wouldn't normally see. That might be a reason to pay for something like this. Um, we can actually see that right now they're trying to load in the markets. Um, we can check out the network at any point in time. We can see there is a majority of a network point, and it's 7.17.2. So basically, these are like version numbers, and not just version numbers, but we can also see some of them are specifically the wallet, or they might be other factors that get involved. Very, absolutely aggressive. Um, and I think that if the foundation is paying for the Explorer, there might be a way to um, take that into factor. You might be able to affect things on here. Um, so at the same time, I wouldn't rely strictly on here. But one of the things we do see here is they have an API. So this does allow people to actually build onto their system. And again, another thing that would be worth paying for. So it's toss up if it's good or bad that they're actually paying for it. Now, we've looked at all that. Let's look at the cryptocurrency. This is the part that is the fun part. So I'll give you the chains website, and we're going to go to digibyte.org. Bring up their website. Boom. I just want to bring this up on here. They have all their information. You can see they got wiki page, all this other fun stuff. Um, you can learn a little bit about its history and things like that. Now, the thing I wanted to bring up here is that a lot of this stuff is set up through video. Some of them are kind of old and offer data points on it. They're no longer valid. And I think that's kind of important to see that there is recorded in history with video data points that have become obsolete, unused, or just no longer used, part of the system. You can see all about it and stuff, all the same stuff you would expect to find out. It looks fancy, fun. They have a little history thing. They got one of these on like the bottom of every page. It kind of gives you more information and things like that. And if we go to their GitHub, we can go directly to their code, and we can see this is the core. This is DigiByte core by DigiByte, and this is the most recent setup and everything like that. So what I wanted to look at is issues. We can see there's 17 um, here, and this is going to be an important factor later. Well, really shortly actually, and we can see that they are having very specific issues. And that's going to make sense here real shortly of what some of these actually are. But if we look, we can see some of them are just not secure. Some of the issues are dealing with the wallet specifically. And if we go through and see, okay, what about just the chain? Um, the only thing we're seeing with the chain is stuff like um, signing problems. We're seeing problems where stuff is not correlating correctly or is duplicated or little tiny little things. Is it possible to send to a Bitcoin address? We can see uh, multi-algo not working. The things that are they're having issues with are kind of big, and that's kind of scary because a lot of it has to do with something that was old that no one noticed. And then when Dandelion came in, it set off an explosion, so to speak, of problems. Now, what kind of problems are they really? Some of them are kind of rare, and that would make it hard to fix because the less times you have information about it, harder it is to fix it. But the majority of the ones that people have seen, again, they're rare. So not everyone's seen it, not everyone's having this issue, and you can say that it's more for issues when you're doing really specific tasks. Um, come on. But if we go through their um, white paper, we can learn a little bit more about the coin, and there's some key points here I wanted to point out throughout this whole paper. Um, but before I do, I want to point this one out. I was just looking at my show notes and I realized this was here. There is a second DigiByte. DigiByte, okay? The second one has more issues, and if we jump over to the code, even Jared Tate is in here. So they are actually doing DigiByte code here as well. So there is uh, code, there's multiple code repositories for the same DigiByte. And I did notice that they have a repository for each and every feature, which is kind of important. So the feature this is for is the main system, not the core, which is technically the wallet, but DigiByte as a whole, like the cryptocurrency. And we can see that problems is like, again, lots of problems with the wallet, but encrypted wallet freezes. We're seeing configurations are not working right with the algorithms. We're seeing problems with the multiple hashing algorithm, and we're seeing problems with the blocks. We're seeing problems with timing, duplications in digits, not duplications in coins, not duplications of hashes, but duplications of what we would call a form of serialization, digits. So, and then we can also see that people are trying to enhance privacy, but basically this means that there's privacy problems. Um, and again, some of these privacy settings are just with the wallet, and some of them are not though. So yeah, this is going to tell us more about what's actually going on. Um, and I think the white paper really is a bigger resource for this. Now, I didn't show a QR code for this other GitHub page. Okay, so when you go through here, it just kind of retells you everything we are kind of already found out. Um, and we can see some of this information that we were looking at earlier, all the same, um, which is absolutely awesome, right? Um, so we can see different aspects. We see that multiple algorithms, GPU, FGPA mining, it's on-chain scaling, uh, the fact that they have, I don't know, educating the importance of running a full node. I don't think that's whatever, but it's there. And embracing code contributions that uphold the ethos of DigiByte. That's kind of important here for it to be in because an ethos of the cryptocurrency is going to be different for everybody. Um, but I think that's really a sign of there are issues in the community with the devs. I don't see issues in the community with non-devs. I only see issues in the community with their devs. And it's not really like devs fighting with each other. Devs get along quite well, it seems like. In some cases, like, well, in most cases, I should say. Um, they wanted to attack on scaling. They wanted all the same stuff as Bitcoin, but they wanted something a little bit faster. That's really what we're looking at. Something that can handle more robustness of stuff. Um, then we go into these protocol upgrades. And I think this is where we start seeing things. So we see Digi-Byte at launch. That's not really an upgrade, is it? No, that's the start. So Digi-Shield. Um, this is just basically, what is it? This is the real time. I think this is yeah, this is where they're like real time or asynchronous hash checking for difficulty. It's cool and all, and being done, it is doing what it's intended to fix, which is basically quite large fluctuations of hashing. Remember we've talked before in the past, where if you fluctuate the hash, you can kind of get some kind of control or increase the value of coin temporarily, things like that. So there are programs that what they do is if you're not getting the best hash rate, it just automatically switches you to a different coin. And this Digi-Shield was the protection from that because it was causing a lot of problems. And there were a lot of coins at the time that would have stalling. The blockchain just kind of stops because they didn't have enough mining to handle for the difficulty, or enough hashing to handle for the difficulty to get a block. It actually got to a point where they did not have enough at all to get a block, and some of them just stopped because of these things. So this is cool. They were coming up with problem-solving solutions. I think that's the best thing to get out of here, and I think the best attack that this is trying to protect from um, is just for like I think they're called controlling attacks, something like that. It's just basically paid groups. So they go and they mine ahead of time. Then they get some mining coins. Then they have a paid trade group. And they go, okay, it's time for us to trade with this coin. It's going to go up soon. And then they get into it, and since they have a mass amount of people, they now have miners to ensure that they can handle transactions. Goes up the value. Now the miners are now selling, like the people involved in this attack are now selling directly, and so this is what means that the people in the trade group are being attacked, not the cryptocurrency, not the coin or anything like that, but because it is being adjusted on the fly. This is a coin that's more levered. People that like to do that kind of attack, that thing where they're getting paid trade groups and stuff like that. This is one of the coins they like to use because of Digi-Shield. So the solution to the problem, which is the paid trade group, is also now a reason why paid trade groups prefer to use it. So that's a bit weird. So we're basically seeing that it problem to a solution is also the problem, or basically it becomes irrelevant, so to speak, because the problem's still there. Now, on the crypto side, the yeah, the development side, it is still a solution. It still does its job. It's still doing what it's intended to do. Just kind of got out of their hands, I think. Um, so multi-algorithm mining. Um, So there is such thing as like split mining, which is where you have one rig mining multiple coins or algorithms. Then you have double mining, which is where one rig mines one algorithm but sends that output to multiple different networks. And so when DigiByte did this multi-algorithm thing, it really was a game changer because the ideal of one coin on multiple algos has been done, but it had tons of double spinning problems, max value overflow errors, double assignment ordinal numbers, um, floating point blockchains, um, or I like to call it floating block point. So where the actual like blocks they have floating block where you might skip numbers and might go from like say 5 to 12 on whatever the block number actually is. Um, and then you can also get like weird outputs from there. Sometimes a dot one, dot two, stuff like that. And so Digibyte is like getting a working version with less problems, um, as like the OG multi-hash was a huge deal. So them fixing some of these problems, getting this to work, this was a big deal at the time. So does this mean that, perspective of some known errors are potentially soothed? Yes. Um, But this does show that, Digibyte devs do have a proven way to solve strange problems. Um, so I kind of want to talk a little bit more about this briefly because basically with this multi-aggro, we do see both good and bad at it, having it. Um, Eventually, there's going to be they're talking about in here, um, there's a growth point where they're going to need to add more algorithms because this is they know this isn't a solution. It's like a band-aid. And if we look like Monero ring signature, Monero knew when it first came out that the ring signature wasn't high enough to actually have like real security. Like it was like secure, but it wasn't like as secure as it could be. It wasn't as private as it could be. Um, but with that extra privacy and stuff, it was harder to work with. And so they kept the ring signature down, making it easier to deal with, more predictable, making it easier for the development. Um, and then eventually they had to upgrade it. So we're going to see basically this is the same kind of same band-aid problem. Sure, it does do its job, it does make it secure, but you know, with like SHA-256 script, qubit, wire, and scaling, some of these are not that good. Some of these are actually really good. And so we have this combination of like Like some of these can be double used and other weird problems, which ends up becoming a big issue. Um, so this guy is Joshua. This is actually the same Joshua we were hearing the other person on Reddit talk about. Um, and I think that's kind of important. This is the exact event that we heard about. Um, that people were saying Jared was stalling development. And if you go through here and you read it all, it actually has to do with the security. It actually has to do with this exact problem that we have seen in the past, that we're seeing now. The fact that if you look at this picture, all this orange is known SHA hashes. This black right here, that's DigiByte. Uh, there's a lot of there you can reuse. Kind of important here, and I'll explain more of that here very shortly, as we need to learn a little bit more about cryptocurrency to understand more of what that has to do with. So they have more of these upgrades, right? Multi-Shield. To put it simply, one of the problems I was talking about with the algorithms or whatever, this multi-shield is like anti-cheat for disconnected networks. It allows them to basically build a way to time things together. And that's kind of important because when you're asynchronizing your hash difficulty, that's important to have timing set up right. Um, so they even mentioned that timing attacks was very prevalent. They talk about all sorts of different little things. Again, like the paid trade group things and stuff like that that we knew about. That became a thing like somewhere around 2016, and DigiByte came out well not that long before that, and Multi-Shield came out around the same time frame. So really important to see that paid trading groups, those types of attacks they were doing there were so this people were really trying to figure out solutions for what they were causing, and DigiByte really was one of the ones trying to be the front runner for that at the time. So the stack method became really known in 2016, became noted publicly in 2017, and then actually became a real problem with some networks between 2018 and 2020. Digi-Shield does checks per Planck, which is the smallest computer time measure unit from the Planck's time theory, which is the theory of time that all digitalized devices use. Um, so Multi-Shield does these checks per block, though. So we see they have Digi-Shield per Planck, then this one is per block. So they work together. One is doing more of these more often. The other one is doing it less often, and they can kind of sync up. Hey. They can sync up with kind of like how a 2FA does. Like when you use a 2FA, you have a phone, right? There's a server somewhere, and your phone has to connect to a server. If both those servers have the same number at the same time, boom, they work. It's the same uh, math equation, just being done over and over and over. And so if you guys are in the same cycle, you should always have the same number. It's kind of the same thing, but with multiple different points. Then they have Digi-Speed. Um, this is the upgrade that it was and is no longer, but is still here. So this upgrade happened, no longer is needed, no longer is used, and the including it into the system, we still see it. Um, so this is how they cut down on block speed to 15 seconds. It has more to do with like a timing and syncing, but also affects other factors like halving times or halvening times. And a later upgrade basically made it pointless, and for the effect from it, the 15-second block times still exist, so it wasn't for absolutely nothing. If anything, this was an upgrade situation that for years many were afraid of. In the past, many upgrades were just ignored by mass from many currencies because of fear that the upgrade wasn't big enough to stay a change. People were like, I only want to make something change, or I want to make a change if it's going to stay. Um, and this one definitely did not. So Bitcoin did see a few years where it upgraded and then it would upgrade out. So basically that means that a new upgrade came out that actually canceled out that update. It didn't revert backwards. It just a new upgrade made that no longer used or needed or whatever. It could still be, but it isn't, or it doesn't need to be. And so DigiByte showed us that one upgrade can sometimes cause the upgrade that causes it to be upgraded out. So without Digi-Speed, we wouldn't have gotten the upgrade that actually causes Digi-Speed to no longer be needed, is what we're saying. Um, so we have like SegWit, a reverse algo, and ODCrypt. These are the three upgrades that really made Digi-Speed absolutely not needed. And that's fine though, but because it's still a 15-second block time. And all of these right here, these are kind of basic. We've seen SegWit in first various things. We've seen algorithms of various things, and we've seen ODCrypt in other cryptocurrencies. So it's just like an ASIC. It's just a way to prevent ASICs on chain. Okay, cool. So that's basic, nothing special, nothing new. Then we get into Dandelion. So Dandelion is the privacy protocol, and which I would say it's not actually a privacy protocol, but a torrent transmission upgrade. Um, there's many torrent networks that use the same setup as what Dandelion plus plus actually is, where the node broadcasts to a dedicated node and then decides if it sends again to a different node, and which may or may not be dedicated. And so only if your broadcasts are being resent do you actually get the privacy from the grid. And that also partly depends on the receiving node of your broadcast because they can actually rebroadcast without changing who's broadcasting, and you can still then be unprivate, and you can still be non-private basically. If broadcasts are only being sent to direct nodes, it is possible to actually backroute traffic and find the source. Even on slivers of metadata, including like IMEI numbers, which are specific to a device. So we can actually go down to court and say this device was broadcasting that signal or that transmission or that transaction. Um, and it can give privacy, but does it actually give privacy? No, not really. It does have other things it does that are useful for higher functionalities, for chain of reform that we're seeing that DigiByte's kind of moving in the direction of, which is a platform network and not really just a cryptocurrency network. You know, they're wanting to do more things. They want the digital ID, they want the NFTs, they want the different assets, they want the different types of exchanges, they want the different types of coins, they want all the different things, they want script signatures. They want, basically doing smart contracts and other things like that. So DigiByte has a ton of features and upgrades. They have a bunch more that they're looking at doing, but we're not going to look at what could be. We want to know what is, was, um, and so everything. I think everything that all the way down to here, we start getting upgrades, right? So staking, maybe fixing their memory problem. Um, And then here are applications that are actually produced. We see Digi-ID, we see digital assets, NFTs, things, and tokens. Um, I thought there was a thing in here about like the DigiByte Foundation, specifically, or whatever. But we do see here that DigiByte is almost completely driven and ran by volunteers. So the only few people that you could say are not really a volunteer technically still are because they actually have a technical job that is not have anything to do with DigiByte. It's not like a second job or anything like that. It seems to be their main job. This DigiByte thing just seems to be something like to be involved with. But are people getting paid? That's a different story. And we actually see that this person has had. Yeah, I'm back on this Joshua's article thing about the problems they were having directly, like with the founder, because he breaks down exactly what the real problem is. Um, he has actual screenshots, he has actual receipts, he has actual messages with Jared. Um, and we can even see problems like here where Jared is saying so 2 blocks, right? So roughly two blocks, it becomes 3 times less vulnerable. And the guy's like, no, it's 34 versus 32. That is a difference of 2 blocks, but it's not the 2 blocks where it becomes less vulnerable. It's 34 to 32 blocks later, it becomes less vulnerable. That's a huge difference. Um, yeah, sure, it's still only seconds or whatever, but it's still a huge difference. So, DigiByte again has tons of features and upgrades, but is it private, secure, or worth it? Those are the real questions at hand, I guess. And for many points, it varies between all three of these, um, except for what kind of has been changed. So you have a lot of privacy, you have a lot of security, you have a lot of decentralization, but there's also been things that's been changed that then may remove some of that. So sure, there's a lot of it there, but it could be better, um, because some of their changes have kind of hurt it, so to speak. And DigiByte has two centralized entities of power, and that is the company and the founder. Um, we already saw earlier that there have been people that have mentioned that the founder still maintains some kind of control, with the dev work. Um, and then, the Joshua thing is the main point there. I recommend you go read it. It's a lot of information, but if you read that, plus you go back and you read that Reddit article we brought up earlier, you kind of see how things correlate. And I think there's even stuff on Twitter you can go look at, see them fighting and stuff. Um, and so basically, the whole thing is about hash renting. And yeah, these attacks can happen. And that's true for pretty much all networks that involve a hash, that's been used for other things. So, but Digibyte is faster and with concrete blocks, which means you can't reverse them, right? So this hash renting means it's faster to test and do. This is kind of scary because if it takes an algorithm 5 pushes to find the formula that it gets you the guaranteed next block, with Bitcoin, that takes about an hour to get 5 pushes. With Digibyte, it's 75 seconds, it's just over 1 minute for potential testing. So if a mining group was to have this algorithm set in the background to run, they would almost guarantee each next block by a higher percentage per block they find as a whole group. This also could be embedded into a mining code, mining script, mining program, app, anything, third party. And so this type of rent attack is less known, but it's actually still used all the time for things. So putting it into like the mining wouldn't be that uncommon. People probably wouldn't even notice the code. It probably would go unseen as a problem. And it could guarantee control within the first 5 blocks of, say everyone was using that mining program. First 5 blocks, it now has complete total control. It can guarantee the next block every time. And it is just a hash that someone else has done with some other network. It's just a known hash. Um, So yeah, it's kind of scary. And this Joshua guy mentions that the cost of the hash renting attack does go down, because of the multi-algorithm situation, and mentions issues with the multi-algorithm that we've actually seen in previous multi-algorithm systems, specifically like the push of the attack I was just mentioning. Having like with the trade paid group, having the algorithm packed into a mining program, and basically like the pool, the mining pool setup where it could be packed there as well. Um, so this miner plus attacker, they both win. If you have the in the program or in the trade group, everybody wins there. Like no one's losing, except maybe the people being attacked in the trade group, but that's a different story. Um, so the main people at hand, the miners and the attackers, they both win. Um, and then it gets to cost less to get it going because you have less of a percentage for that specific algorithm. Um, and then basically, you're going to get about a fifth of the total daily hat blocks. So you have a fifth chance of taking control of the network, um, which then that can pay for you to do it to the next algorithm, the next algorithm. And eventually you can have this working solution on all 5 algorithms and have actual control. And that's really what that guy was talking about. That we don't know why Jared wasn't responding to it as way you think you probably would want to, which is let's get that fixed. Problem is, though, to get it fixed, you have to get rid of a lot of these features that have been released into the program, into the cryptocurrency. Um, and so that might be the reason why there. But I hate to be honest, like hijacking this chain is more probable than possible. And at the same time, if someone was to try it, they don't even have to actually mine anything. They can just use the entire list of known hashes for those actual hashing programs, algorithms. And that's the scary. That's where it becomes cheap. They don't actually have to mine. And they can do a lot more testing what a miner would be able to do a lot faster. So this guy also mentions about like replacing algorithms instead of inserting more algorithms to increase the security, and that would that if you changed your algorithms every so many blocks, or um, you could actually increase your security every X number of blocks by changing it. Even if it's like over time you start recycling which ones you're using, you have a chance of it still increasing the security compared to the previous one, based on the time of the year or how hackers are hacking things at the time. There tends to be like more stuff going on in one hash than another hash throughout, like throughout a year, so and it kind of changes when one is being worked on. So you could actually offset that by only using hashes that are not being worked at in the major hacker communities. Um, so again, this type of security increase is potential, not guaranteed, just like the attack itself. Um, Although we can guarantee the hack is possible, we can't guarantee the hack is going to actually be done. Um, and so if we go back and we look at like the issues, 'cause I kind of looked at them earlier. Oh, right here. If we go back and look at the issues from DigiByte core, we can see some of these issues that we're talking about popping through. Um, and that's when we start seeing scary. That's when I'm like, some of this can be scary. Um, doesn't mean it's a problem, but does show that the validity of what's being said may actually be there. Um, so why is DigiByte security hindered by its multi-algorithm? Um, it's like the Digi-Speed and other various upgrades. I mean, not all hashes work the same, not all algorithms work the same, and not all solutions fix the same. Yeah, sometimes I like to say the statement, everyone has a different experience. And this is sooth for more than just people, though. Every experience may be different for every time an experience exists, even if it is the exact same experience, due to like all the other factors of existence. There's tons of factors, things change every constant plane. So Digibite wanted to do something that many other peoples have attempted, and very few have actually successfully completed the task of a sub 1 minute full proof of work, full consistent algorithm network. I say it like that because that does mean something. Um, Full consensus means it's 100% network consensus. Full proof of work means it's only proof of work, nothing else. Um, and so you actually are performing large math equations. So they originally got it down to 30 seconds, which is a Herculean task on its own. And it does cause a lot of these issues, though, that wouldn't actually get seen or even noticed until Dandelion Plus Plus. It's when we started noticing a lot of these issues actually existed. Um, and during the time frame of the creation of Dandelion and stuff, this guy was kind of really on the ball of trying to get people aware of what's going on. So he was talking about these issues that were actually caused by sub 1 minute block times. And so, what is the problem? What's so problemsome about it? It's mathematical, really, and it's even mentioned in some of those documents we showed earlier that uh, Joshua in his articles link in. Um, so it's purely mathematical, is what it comes down to. Like we can mathematically show how it can be attacked, how prevalent it is, and how expensive it is. Um, And so go back and look at Foxwatch Auditor. Um, Let me just pull up the QL real fast again so you can find it. Um, lost my spot. Um, so a proof of work block time, it does need to be longer than the time it takes for the average CPU to hash the list of known hashes for that stall algo. That's really what the problem is. Um, they it's too fast, and so they can no longer guarantee that all these known hashes cannot be granted through a list first before they actually tried even the first actual hash for the miner. So because these secure hash algorithms are SHA, um, they always output the same if you input the same. So it always happens. So we can kind of just skip the input and stick to the output and submit it. Um, it kind of saves you a lot of time. And remember earlier when I talked about like two other similar types of mining with multi-algos? One had a single rig with multiple algorithms running same time. Um, Oftentimes that's mining multiple coins, right? The other rig or single rig was sending its single hash algo output to multiple networks. So like there's Litecoin, Dogecoin mining. You can mine a script for hash algo that both Litecoin and Dogecoin uses. Um, and you can send the same result to both, and it could be accepted. So hopefully one or both of yours gets accepted, and then you earn money. You could actually earn about double on the same hash. And this is why it's always been considered a type of attack until about 2013. Someone actually figured out how to make it work, where we could actually do like multiple um, networks without it being a tag. So it's an actual. It's not breaking any rules. It's not doing anything wrong. It's doing as intended, even though it's not any of the data that you would want to see inside that hash. Um, and that's when we basically got what we could call an honest setup. Again, not breaking any rules. It is doing everything it's supposed to, even if it's not the data you would want it to be. Um, Other things to note: the topic of this perspective that this gray dev or Gary or Joshua meaning used in his main paper about the problem was money. He was saying stuff like it costs this much to do this, which could hurt us or DigiByte by this much money. And so when the founder said he was leaving because of money and greed, it could actually be because of this entire situation with Joshua. Um, Plus, with many people saying that the founder was a big hindrance, it wasn't just Joshua saying it. If you go look in the past, there were tons of people saying this between 2018 and 2020. Um, so it's kind of hard to say. Like maybe DigiByte's founder stepping down was a good thing. Um, Maybe like we saw with Litecoin, they seem to prosper afterwards. Now, Litecoin did have an 8-month rocky period before it started really prospering after the Charlie leaving Litecoin. Um, so it's potential that we could see some change in Dubai once they get past their rocky period. It's also important to note that Satoshi decided to exit Bitcoin. Uh, like basically when other people or other devs in the project came out that were able to do two things. They were able to find flaws in the original code base, like the one error, and they were also able to build better code um, than what Satoshi was able to do. Um, so it's kind of like Jared leaving DigiByte is still very Bitcoinish of him to do, and a lot of what DigiByte does or did want to do or start to do or become of wasn't directly involved about either uh, to rival, compete, do just better in general, or just because of Bitcoin. And in some ways, DigiByte, it's kind of been an example of what Bitcoin could be in the future. Um, that processes its own. That in the process of trying to show that, it has become its own thing, and even set itself apart from others in the same type of tokenomic brackets as Digi-Byte. And I think it's kind of important there to point out that even though they have other tokens very similar to them, they still stand apart from all of them. And DigiByte already has a handful of real use cases. There are companies and groups pushing to make it more used, like we did see with XRP, with some of the stuff being built on top of the XRPL. Um, so it's kind of cool to see that it's actually got stuff going on. Um, but my honest opinion is that like DigiByte should consider changing some of their algorithms. Um, and some of the ones that's already kind of been voted for, like ProgPal, and continue using a prime factorial number scheme of three or higher for deciding how many algorithms they actually need in their multi-algo. This would actually help basically prevent algorithm takeover and have basically um, more security with a base of three or more. Um, and that's kind of important there. And then, like, lastly, the voting mechanic needs to have a punishment where the publisher of the vote. So I go to put in a vote. I say this is what we want, blah blah blah, and he gets voted on, and then it doesn't get implemented. There needs to be some form of punishment in the back end to ensure that when someone does a vote, it does happen. Because that has been a big issue that I've been seeing in the community, that there would be a lot of votes for things, and then it never actually get done. So giving voters a special token or an NFT to allow them to burn it when they're saying, hey, the information hasn't been done. This can actually allow for automated on-chain contracts and allow for this like base chain action system for the punishment of the vote publisher and not acting like a finalized vote. So basically, I'm going to go put up a vote. I have to put in a bunch of money up front. I have to basically stake or put money into the vote. And if I don't do what I'm supposed to, I don't get that money back. Um, and if enough of those tokens get burned, I lose that money permanently and I'm unable to receive it at all. So all the times what people do is they would allow you to take back some of it a little bit at a time um, until those tokens start getting burned. Um, I really think they should be using like a layer two proof of stake instead of a direct chain proof of stake that they're actually talking about looking into. And there's already been people within the community saying that might not be a good idea to go after the SEC has talked about the way they've talked about Ethereum staking. And so a second layer proof of stake would get around that. It also would allow you to have what we call a chain buffer, which is a secondary type of chain blocking system before it actually gets blocked, which then can allow us to compact transactions instead of a block, allow us to increase the number of transactions per block. And it can also create a sub 1 second soft block time or block time without changing anything about the actual block time. And I think DigiByte is set up to be able to handle something like that. And we definitely see in their roadmap they're wanting to go do something with proof of stake. That might be the way they need to go at instead. And then again, I would actually like to see like DigiByte. Um, they need to look more at their wallet. That's the best way to put it. They seem to have a big issue is there with, and some of the issues they are having, we also do see the same issue with stuff like Bitcoin and Monero. So that's not really a huge deal, but there are other wallets out there like Konomi and things like that. But if you want the full experience of DigiByte, they always recommend their specific wallets, mobile apps, and things like that. But those are not the best ones to go for in this case. Um, so what is it up to? Well, it's spreading its digital ID system more and more, and being the digitalized digital ID, they want to be the digital ID used in Europe and online. Because Europe right now is looking at going to a digital ID system, or the EU, I should say. Uh, and how does DigiByte really work? Well, kind of like Bitcoin, but with some changes. And does it solve any problems? Yeah, but it also creates a lot of problems too, and ones that we already knew of as well. So doesn't really like it fixes problems, but it creates problems, and the problems it creates, we already knew about these problems from the type of stuff that it's using to fix the problems that it's trying to fix. It's confusing. And what about its hashing? Well, two of its hashing algorithms are kind of good, and three of them are not that great. And so that's why they need to upgrade it. They need to upgrade some of their stuff. And should you have it or use it or mine it? I really don't know. I'm not going to say no, though, to any one of those three things. I still think Digibyte's a really great currency. It does do a lot of things that people want to see. If you're a business, it's a good one to accept. Um, but when it comes down to it, I would say Digibyte is not actually the Bitcoin of the future. Digibyte would be like the Bitcoin of the multiverse. It's a different type of Bitcoin, but not quite the same. And I do really truly believe that. Again, like I said in the beginning, I do own DigiByte. I used to mine it. I used to be really involved with it. Um, and some of the devs they have working for them are extremely strong devs in network, framework, communications, and transmission. And so I think now that we've seen Jared step down, the future of DigiByte is more bright now than it was a year ago. And that's an important thing. I think maybe if we could come back and look at this again in like 3 years, we'll see that a lot of changes probably have been done, and I hope to see changes for the better. All right, everybody, I hope this helps change your perspective on DigiByte, the cryptocurrency, the complaint, and everything else involved, because it's kind of confusing, just like most of these things. And at the same time, though, it's really cool. All right, guys, thanks for jumping in. Hope you guys' perspective has been changed and have a great